even just immediate in the moment, if we're finding ourselves in some of those behaviors, or maybe feeling a little elevated or frustrated, maybe we're getting a little reactionary in
Mhm.
conversation, even just taking a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, can totally shift the way that you show up for that next moment. So
Welcome back to the Power and Purpose podcast. I'm Vanessa Soul, your host. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I have Stephanie Riel. She is the founder of Spiritually Real Co., blending 15 years of business experience with somatics, yoga, emotional release, nervous system health, and energy work to help others build lives that feel good as they look. So, thank you so much for being here, Stephanie.
thank you for having me. I'm excited for this today.
Yeah, same here. Who are you and who are you not?
Hmm. I knew you were going to ask this question, and I just wanted to be able to feel into this answer now, because I think the one thing I have learned so much on my journey, both in business and life, is what a beautiful gift evolution is, that we always get to change, that we're always evolving, our selves are always shifting. So who I am now, I'm a creative, I'm a healer, I'm a student, I'm a teacher. I am committed to the path of bettering myself. And
Mhm.
that looks different on a day-to-day basis, but that feels that feels really good and complete for who I am right now. Who I am not is it's interesting. I feel resistance, and every time I've listened to one of your episodes, I feel a little bit of resistance with the who I am not. And I remember sitting with that when that came up, when I first learned about your show and heard this. And I like to get curious when I feel that resistance, and I do that work with my clients too. And what really feels alive in this moment about that who I'm not is is this notion of a belief, a story that I used to tell myself, um, in this journey of evolving. There's a lot of pieces of me that aren't active now, and I thought before I had to let them all go. And so that not was, oh my gosh, no, I used to own a marketing agency. We had clients all over the country and team all over the country. And when I decided to step away from that business, I didn't want to even talk about marketing. So there was a big, oh no, I'm not that. And so I think for me, that comes alive with that question, because I've been reminded so much recently, even of how I'm still all those parts of me, and that's beautiful. And I think the simplest way to answer the who am I not is I'm not somebody who's willing to hide from her wholeness anymore.
Mm, what a mic drop.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that. And that is such a great example. Thank you for letting that flow through and just sharing that naturally because it's a great example of self-acceptance. And it reminds me of this book that I've been obsessed with recently called The Right Use of Will, which is a channeled text. And I can't remember the author's full name. I could only remember a piece of it, but it is about not denying parts of ourselves, not just like the shadow worky stuff, like not just like what we get that we understand the shadow work, but there's the like the marketing thing that wasn't like a shadow that you were right. That was still like another piece of you that needed to be included in your journey, and it wasn't necessarily a shadow. So to me, that was a great example of full self-acceptance. And now I do want to talk about a little bit of your journey to where you are now. Tell us about your journey from external achievement to inner alignment, kind of like a little clip of that.
Yeah, I think that is the epitome to me. When I look back and reflect on my journey, that was a big lesson in my career and achievement. I grew up the daughter of an immigrant. So that first generation American, achieving, doing well in school was always instilled in me, and I'm so grateful for that. And I learned early on, getting good grades, um, achieving, excelling. That was a great way to earn love and to feel accepted. And that snowballed, I recognize now, into building a career that was helping a lot of people. And I'm so proud of the work that I did with my marketing agency, but it never really felt fulfilling. So in reflection, it occurred to me that I was building that business and quite successful at it as well. But for somebody else, like for somebody else's dream and for that external achievement. And that was a big theme in my life, really for the first 35, 36 years of my life. I'm just recently unlearning and unbecoming that version of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And I have like a very detailed question there because some of us don't know when we are feeling unfulfilled. So during that time that that was coming to your awareness, what did that unfulfillment feel like or look like, or how did it show in behaviors or actions?
Yeah. First, I want to say I ignored it and dismissed my intuition, dismissed my body and what my body was telling me for years. I mean, that's how I lived for a long time. It was always, oh, I'm feeling this in my body, but a doctor's saying this. Oh, the doctor must be right. Or in relationships I'm in, I'm experiencing this, being told I was wrong or didn't know what was going on. The term now is gaslit. I didn't know that at the time, but very much then, experiencing that and believing the other person instead of what my felt experience was. And so I share that because I was really getting good. I was really good at not listening to the body, not listening to my intuition, even though it was very loud and very strong. And I often see, and I see in my own journey how, at first it was whispers, moments of achievement, landing a dream client and it feeling like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Like this doesn't feel right. It feels wrong. And I, I, I now speak in terms of energy and frequency and chakras and speak to the body first,
Mm,
um, very key teaching of somatics. But a decade ago, I didn't have that vocabulary. So, how I would describe it, of how that presented, is a feeling of something being wrong. For me, I often feel that in my solar plexus, the area right
mm,
below my rib cage, where there's like the sinking feeling, the pit in our stomachs. It can even be something as simple as, oh, maybe having a thought of, maybe I shouldn't sign this client, even though that didn't make logical sense. And
mhm,
then finding out shortly after, why the intuition was alarming that. But there were a lot of those little moments. Um, and then some bigger ones too. My body was physically, I was dealing with a lot of dis-ease in the body. And I was working so much, which was such a beautiful blessing and gift that I had such a desire to achieve and work. But I was quite literally working 16 to 18-hour days, sitting at the computer, and was in that position with my hands on the keyboard so much that I actually injured my ulnar nerve from being at the keyboard too much, which is
oh,
the it's the nerve in your elbow. So that pins and needles feeling that you get when you hit your elbow on something, the funny bone feeling. I lived with that for about 9 weeks and lost complete use of my left hand, and I'm left-handed, so I couldn't write.
mm,
I wasn't able to work the way I had been working, and that was a big wake up call because I had ignored a lot of the whispers before, and then my body
mhm.
was like, okay, we got to make a change here. Um, and
Yeah.
that's when I started to notice the shift. But it unfortunately it took that. One of my mentors calls it a spiritual 2x4, where we really get hit with the truth and see something, and then once we see it, we can't unsee it. So that was very much how it manifested for me.
Yeah. And how does somatics and the nervous system awareness, how does that help, any professional, whether they're in the corporate world or whether they're entrepreneurs? How does it help them really come into alignment with what they define as success? Not necessarily booking the big clients, all the time. Like, yes, that could be a part of it for some of us, but however we define success, where does somatics and nervous system awareness come into that?
For me, understanding now my journey and seeing how our body, our nervous system, and the studying that I've done of the brain and neuroscience and somatics in the last 5 years, that old version of me used to put, I used to try to compartmentalize everything. Oh, I'm achieving so much in business, things are great. I'll sleep later. Or, oh, my elbow's been bothering me. I'll just push through this client campaign and then I'll get back to my body. And I don't feel in the work that I do now, I don't feel that my experience is all that uncommon. So often high achievers, entrepreneurs, mothers,
Very common.
all of us humans,
Yeah.
we put our needs aside. We have an idea of a project or a goal that we're working towards, which is such a beautiful thing, but we completely let our own needs or the way our body's speaking to us fall by the wayside. And from my experience, when we do that, which is very common, it can lead to more dis-ease and more challenges down the road. So to go back to your question, what that signals for me is it, we are all these parts. Even coming back to the very first thing we talked about when we started this conversation today, we are all those parts. But when we avoid or don't acknowledge some of those parts of us, um, that's when a challenge arises or even a part can really start to feel a certain way. That's what often leads to triggers, is when
Mhm.
a part isn't feeling seen or heard, or gets reminded of a past experience where there wasn't a loving witness. And so I think so often in business, we talk about success, we talk about our quarterly goals, our yearly goals. And so beautiful that we have the opportunity in this lifetime to get to achieve them. But if we aren't listening to the signals from our nervous system, which is evolutionarily there to help us stay safe, and has so many different inputs coming in that our ancestors, that the first evolutionary beings didn't have. They didn't have cell phones, they didn't have all these notifications and inputs coming in at all times to the body. But if we're ignoring those, um, we're really doing ourselves and our businesses a disservice too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what does it look like to integrate the mind and the body and the spirit in our business strategy?
It can look like something different for everyone. So I don't like to speak in absolutes because that doesn't work. We're all such unique, beautiful, magical beings, but we all have different needs and our systems are in different places. Um, so I like to just talk in maybe some simple strategies because I think this is one thing, there's a lot of conversations about biohacking, which I love to biohack as much as some of the other high performers that are talking about it. But it doesn't necessarily need to be a large investment or a specific tool, or you don't have to go buy a cold plunge tub or things like that. It can be as simple as taking a few deep breaths, on your inhale, allowing that to come in through the nose, and on your exhale, just letting your exhale be maybe a couple seconds longer than the inhale. Those small little signals can help the nervous system find balance and help restore that connection to the body. A lot of times, even a walk, getting outside, if you have access to grass, amazing. Going to stand in the grass barefoot is one of my favorite things to do. But even just being outside, feeling wind on your body, on your skin, hearing birds, those are all things that signal to our nervous system that we're safe and can help us get a little bit of space. Because that's, I think, the biggest thing. No matter the somatic tool, it's helping us to get a little bit of space from whatever the reality of our day to day is. If that's
Mhm.
doing business deals, if that's managing a family, if that's living the side hustle while you're also working a 9 to 5, it can take a lot of different forms, and we each have different things depending on where the nervous system is, and also depending on how your nervous system tends to run. Depending on your lived experience, your childhood, there's a lot of different factors that go into what our systems are just kind of operating on default, if we think about it in those terms. So the tools or the mechanisms that really can go deeper, look different for everyone. But even finding just some moments for some stillness,
Mm,
even 3 seconds. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes, an hour, 4 hours, because depending on where your nervous system is at, even carving out 3 minutes to do some breath work might
yeah.
go make you go into functional freeze and you're like, nope, I'm gonna avoid this now. I'm gonna go do something else. So it's building up that muscle, almost like we would in the gym of, we don't go in lifting the heaviest weight. We go in with smaller weights and we work our way up. So how can we do that with moments of stillness too?
Beautiful. What does nervous system dysregulation look like?
Mm.
And I know it's different for everyone, but what are some common things that we can just use as a starting point to identify some more self-awareness around that?
One of the big ones that I find for myself where I can see maybe I'm a little dysregulated is if I'm going through my day and I don't remember like driving somewhere, for example,
Ah,
or maybe this is something that previously used to happen to me quite often. I would lose my keys like every day. I would never know where my keys were. Um, because it kind of being on autopilot, that feeling. And I know that that's a saying that we hear oftentimes, but what does that actually look like in our lives? Maybe it is driving somewhere and not remembering that you got there. Um, Not taking a moment, if you are outside on a walk, to just feel the breeze on your skin. Feel the sunshine, or feel if it's a cloudy day, feeling what that feels like. Just taking a second to feel that. I think even if we're on a walk, if we're just on a walk trying to complete it, trying to check it off the list for the day, that's actually not creating that mindfulness moment, that connection. Um, it's really just chasing dopamine. So there's a difference.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what I'm hearing too, or at least how I'm interpreting it, is that those moments of stillness and taking a walk and slowing down and breathing for 3 seconds, it allows our mind to ground in the body, like to become more embodied, more grounded. So that way we're not flying everywhere. So thank you for sharing like one of the signs for you. And I think I started reflecting like one of the signs for me when I'm uh, dysregulated. There's several, but the one that's coming to mind is when I'm switching between like tasks like way too quickly. Like
Hmm.
I know some people multitask. I know some people are not capable of it. I can, but there's still a groundedness that I and a focusedness. And if it's very intentional if I'm multitasking successfully, and it's very
Yeah.
minimal. It's not like jumping between two things. But if I'm jumping like two, three, texting, da 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 da, it's just like somehow I got wrapped up in the energy of the day, or I haven't I didn't go to the beach, I didn't meditate, or
Mm.
like, I
Yeah.
didn't do my practices that remind me to really slow down, feel the sand underneath my feet, and really become more embodied. So, yeah,
Yeah.
let me know if you have any other thoughts on that.
Well, and I was gonna step into like to click out from that into some of maybe the more common things that we can find, and absolutely what you just shared is one of them. And then I started thinking about the physiological reasons that happens. Maybe our thoughts quicken, our breath quickens, because our nervous system is constantly working with the body and the system to survey our surroundings. So whether you're in your home environment, at the beach, in a grocery store, in the airport, wherever you might be, our bodies are always, or our system is always signaling to the body, hey, it's safe here, hey, there's danger. And that, of course, originated from evolutionary times when, there were predators, there were bears and woolly mammoths, and all the animals. I don't know all the different predatory animals that are out there, but now we're in touch with those dangers. And I use air quotes because it's not like we're necessarily surveying because we're going to be attacked by another animal.
Mm-hmm.
But our system, I believe, and I feel our system is taking in information from our surroundings and our digital world too. So notifications on the phone, emails to get to, a stressful conversation with a loved one, and all of those are different markers. And so when the body sees that without us even knowing it, behind it's just on autopilot. Our beautiful bodies are always working to protect us, and they start to dilate our pupils a little bit. It starts to shift how our breathing is happening. It starts to, the body, that's the it that I'm referring to, changes how our circulation is working and where blood flow goes to bring it into the center of the body for the most vital organs. And so
Hmm.
how that ends up showing up in modern day times might be working through tasks quickly. Maybe you're talking quite quickly. Maybe you're in your head and thinking quite a bit and um kind of losing track of where you're in this exact present moment. And that's
Hmm.
so easy for that to happen. And it's not a bad thing. If anything, it's um a great moment to be like, oh, you know what? I'm noticing that I'm getting a little out of my center. Um, what can I do to find balance in the moment, to remind my body
Yeah.
that I'm safe, that I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely. And because you and I both have done like emotional release work and like all of that with people and for ourselves, most likely, sometimes some of us, that's our normal state. We're in that fight or flight state as a trauma response. Like sometimes that's like our main state, outside of sleeping or something. But as soon as we wake up, and I say we because I was like there not too long ago, for like
Yeah.
years of my life, probably 5 years ago, like that was maybe 7, that was like my dominant,
Yeah.
my main energy, right? So someone may not notice in this whole episode, this conversation, I feel like we're really raising a lot of awareness. And so, yeah, do you have any tips for people who feel like this is just who they are? Like this,
Mm.
like, what do you mean? I've always talked fast. I've always multitasked. I've always, I
Yeah.
always forget my keys, like your
Hmm.
example. Like what are some first baby steps that are easy that they could start to raise awareness or take action?
Absolutely. I first and foremost, I used to I there's a version of me that was my lived experience as well. So I have so much compassion because it's it, it seems to me oftentimes in society that kind of go 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 mentality and um experience leads to success. It's rewarded. And so I think that there is um a lot of beautiful awareness from a conversation like this for that curiosity to begin of, hey, actually, that kind of sounds like me. And I think the first step is even just acknowledging that actually that I see myself in that experience or in this conversation as well, because I think when we can have that level of awareness, even just an initial curiosity of, oh, that kind of sounds like me. Um, that's where we can start to um separate from that part that's active. I do a lot of therapy work. I've a lot of parts work. I've been
I love
a
parts work.
a client of parts work for over 5 years, and I do that work with clients as well. And when we get so wrapped up in that moment, or if we're so in that go mode, um, it can be hard to
Yeah.
recognize that. But even a conversation like this, listening to a conversation like this, seeing ourselves, seeing myself and previous versions of me in some of these behaviors, that was a big turning point for me of, oh wow, what could it look like? Because I used to always tell myself, oh, there's, 10 years ago me, there's no way I could meditate. My mind's too busy for that. Um, and so on and so forth, the stories that we're telling ourselves. But it it can be as simple as that curiosity.
Okay.
And then I think in those moments, our breath is so powerful. Our bodies do it without us even thinking about it, but it can change and signal so much to the body, even just taking a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And we can talk more complex breath work than that. But I think even just immediate in the moment, if we're finding ourselves in some of those behaviors or maybe feeling a little elevated or frustrated, maybe we're getting a little reactionary to in
Mhm.
conversation, even just taking a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth can totally shift the way that you show up for that next moment. So that can be really, really powerful. And it's so easy for us to forget that too.
Yeah, so beautiful. And I'll just say that I agree about the breathing. And there's so many, you're right. There's so many techniques with breathing, especially if you know your intention or you how long you want to do it or what type of experience you want. But it really does release that mental trap that we all get locked in. Like I have to hustle. I have to, I come from sales. It was like I have to do 300 calls a day. And did I really have to? Maybe. I don't know. Until this day, I still don't really know, but I believed I did, so I did it anyway. Was I successful? Yes, you were successful in what you did. But we start to that timeline expires for most of us if it's in our soul contract for it. If we're here for transformation and evolution, you started off this whole conversation. I love it that you mentioned evolution. So yeah, it takes us out of that mental pressure. And not
Mhm.
to say that all your thoughts are going to be gone or that you're not going to have stress again if you just breathe for a couple seconds a day. You really have to build and stay committed with it and make it a lifestyle. But especially for the moment, like what Stephanie's talking about, like just to break the pattern of that has so much to do like that hyper focus or that hyper adrenaline energy just to kind of like take the edge off of that for just a second, even if you don't get regulated, just if you could tone it down, because I've been there a million times, and my listeners know like I had a struggle with coffee, like caffeine, because that hyper vigilant state, that hyper aware or that stress was addictive to me at that time because that
Mhm.
was like again previously in my life I was always in it, so I wanted to keep it going because it was so familiar, and peace was really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right. So, but the breathing, and there was moments even when I was coming off of that. I call it addiction, as silly as a copy addiction sounds. It was an addictive behavior for me personally, not for everyone, just for the record, you guys. But I call it that, or I recognize it as that. And when there was moments where that mental pressure was coming on, like,
Mhm.
aren't you going to go get this? Don't you need it? Da, 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 da. It was the breath. It's exactly what you're saying. Just taking that moment. And I think I read somewhere, it was like 15 seconds. They were like, if you can delay that urge, whatever the urge is, whether it's to get on Instagram again or if it's something else, I don't know if it works for everyone all the time, but like try it at
Yeah.
little moments. This is like the smaller tool in the tool belt. There's bigger tools, you guys, that you could use, but this is one of the smaller tools when you don't have like a lot of resources. I would just breathe for like 15 seconds, just like calmly. No, no, I wasn't doing box breathing and like all the other ones. But it really is powerful. So I love that you're bringing that up.
Yeah. When I think it's small and it's actually we can breathe anywhere. Doesn't matter
Yeah.
if you're driving, it doesn't matter if you're walking, doesn't matter if you're in a boardroom in a meeting and something real stressful just happened on the team. You can take a deep breath. I mean, I'm at the point now in my journey, if I need to shake or, uh, hum or whatever, I do that in public. I don't
Oh,
care.
you do that too. Yay, we're on the
But
same
but I
team.
know, but I know a lot of people that's not a part of where they're at right now. Like
Right.
we can all take a deep breath.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is it just gives us a little bit of space, and I think that
Wow.
it might sound so simple, but truly it is so effective. And I think that space, truly on my journey in a bigger way, is what helped me really get where I am now. Because I was very much thriving in the chaos, addicted to that, and and the achievement. And it took a lot of practicing these tools, a lot of deep breaths, and other tools as well. But also making some space. And I unfortunately didn't listen to a lot of the whispers that my intuition and my body was giving me with different symptoms, different experiences I was having, until I was forced to take rest. And so that's what I really am so passionate because it doesn't have to be so hard. One of the lessons I learned early in my childhood was the value of a dollar and hard work. And that was a beautiful lesson. And it also led me to a lot of behaviors where I would make things harder on myself. And one of those things was not, um, not listening to what felt so true in my body because I was so used to doing things a certain way. And so many of the entrepreneurs and high achievers that I work with really feel that too. Because success and the dopamine hits we get from achieving feel so good. But we can still achieve, I believe, we can still achieve and also do it from a really healthy nervous system regulated place.
Yes. And I love that you shake in public. I shake in, I feel like more of us, if it's natural to you, you guys, not if you don't force it, if it's not a part of your thing, but if it's natural, like, because then other people start to feel more comfortable, right? Doing what they need. Like, yeah, like, yes, I love the breathing. You could breathe anywhere, breathe in the meeting. But I just got jazzed up when I heard that you shake in public because I do
Yeah.
that. Like my friends know, like people are just like, oh yeah, you're shaking something off, and I make it, it kind of brings like laughter into like it's not like a shameful experience, like, oh, I gotta shake this off. That was heavy
Yeah.
energy. I mean, maybe like if it that's a very rare situation, but most of the time it's just like full acceptance.
Yeah.
And we've already started to bring so much talk about acceptance here, like accepting all of our
Mhm.
parts, accepting all of our needs.
Yeah.
So, just a quick little message. That's a silly one for you guys. Like, if you feel like shaking in public or with your friends or coworkers, like, yeah, you might need to like give them like a little, you might need to explain it a little bit, but like have fun with it and just do what you need because eventually more people will feel comfortable doing it.
Absolutely. It's permission. A coach of mine, when I first learned about shaking and what it does for the system, a coach of mine, I have a dog and I love my dog so much. And she reminded me and used the example. So permission for any of us out there listening to think of this example when you want to shake or feel like you need to shake it off. What does a dog do when they get a whoosh of energy, they need to change up something, they shake, right? They don't not do it when they're on a walk or out in public or are worried about what the other dogs think. No, they shake it off. And so that was a big permission moment for me of being able to shake. And I actually started shaking in public while I was on walks with my dog because when he would shake, I would shake too. I was like, oh, what's this
Ah.
energy? Do we both need to shake it off? Okay, cool. But that was a little bit of that flexing that muscle, giving myself permission to shake when I needed to. And now I shake anytime, anywhere, whether or not my dog is with me. But it was that example that helped. So I offer that in case that helps anybody listening too. Give yourself permission to do what your body needs.
Yeah, and follow your dog.
Yeah, absolutely.
That no, seriously, that's a what do they call it? I think the atomic habit guy calls it, is that a trigger in his language? Like that's like if you see your dog shaking, just like how Stephanie was like, oh, dog shaking, do I need to shake something? Like, so it'll remind you so that way you're not like having to like overthink like how do I when do I how long to just do what your dog does, like just copy
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So good. So um you have some perspective on the age of Aquarius.
Hmm.
And first, let's start off basic. And I know we don't have a lot of time left, but let's start basic, and then whatever comes through that you just feel, whatever wisdom around the age of Aquarius that's not so basic, you could share that as well.
Yeah. I I've always been so curious about astrology and I'm learning more and more. So I'm by no means an expert in that. I can talk somatics and frequency and all those things all day, but from my understanding of Age of Aquarius, this is such a monumental shift that we're on the planet for, to be able to shift in this time of transparency and truth and authenticity. And I think for me, the biggest thing, I mean, so back in the day when I had a marketing agency, my Instagram handle and my social media, my online persona, my brand was Real Deal. My last name's Real, Real Deal. I built a whole brand and business out of it. I was Real Deal on the internet for almost 2 decades. And I share that because one of the best compliments anybody ever gave me was that I was the same online as I was in person. And why I share that when we're talking about the age of Aquarius is because that's authenticity, being our true selves. And while that was part of my journey and I really needed to find acceptance and bring it into wholeness to allow myself to be all of those parts, the marketing consultant, the healer and somatic coach, the investor, all the different parts of me. But it's really been stepping into that authenticity of all those parts of me and sharing who I am. And I'm still a human. I don't get it all right, but I think that's very much alive with the energy on the planet right now in this age of Aquarius, in this shift to no longer having things hidden or swept under the rug or um truths being manipulated, but we're really seeing that. I believe, and I believe it's going to lead to a really beautiful earth and
Hmm.
experience. My understanding is for Age of Aquarius, there's also a shift to community and
Hmm.
connection. And I know so many of the conversations I have with friends all over our beautiful globe, our beautiful earth, is this desire for community and that feeling of really wanting to be connected. You know, the internet is amazing. It connects, it even connected us to have this conversation. And with that, I know there's science and there's studies that people feel more disconnected than ever, even though we have these beautiful, powerful connection tools. And I really feel that so many of us are being called to connect community in new ways and to redefine what that means. Yes, um, yes, there are still elements of community and experiencing and connection that I believe will still exist. You know, our lived experience, the ways we connect, storytelling, sound, you know, singing, humming, making noise, using our voices, um, being in community and connection. I just got this visual of holding hands, you know, that connection and that intimacy in the moment of holding somebody's hand in a circle, meeting somebody for the first time, we shake hands, being able to really connect. So when I think of Age of Aquarius, those are the things that come alive and that wanted to come through.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. And I'm just curious, do you have Aquarius or Leo energy in your big three? I'm an evolutionary astrologer. So you were talking and I was like, ooh, ooh, I was connecting dots and I just want to know.
I was like, I want to do more about that with you on
Yeah,
offline. But yes, I am a Leo moon and a Leo rising. So
I knew it.
we're here. We're here for it. Yeah.
I knew you were Leo rising. The moon, I didn't it's the moon's it's you got to see more of someone sometimes.
Mhm.
That dramatic emotion. My sister's a Leo moon, but I'm also a Leo rising, by the way. So I always recognize Leo risings, like your hair, like
Oh yeah, I was like, oh, did the curls give it away? The
yeah, you're all
curly.
about
Yeah.
expression.
Yeah.
That shaking in public. Like once the Leos, this is obviously a little off topic, you guys, but just have fun with it. Once we sometimes if we're in the lower expression, the Leo rising or sun or moon, we could be in this performance energy. Like this was
Hmm.
Stephanie's whole thing about,
Yeah.
performing as in her marketing agency. I was performing as that realtor and like all the things. But once we, there's still a little bit of like, it's not performance for validation. It's more just like authentic, raw expression that people see as performance, but it's not. So like that shaking in public, like that's such a Leo rising or Leo sun thing. We're like, I don't care. Yeah,
It's so
so fun.
true.
So fun. Okay, cool. So as we wrap up and stick a nice little pretty bow on this, what are some practical tips for listeners in any shape or form, whatever comes to mind?
One thing I haven't said yet that I thought of earlier, when we were talking a little bit about kind of that in the moment, what happens of, you know, what happens if I feel myself maybe getting a little activated? That's language I would use a little bit. You know, maybe my voice is getting a little bit activated. Maybe I'm doing a lot of things. I'm just moving from task to task, or can't remember a whole drive somewhere. Gosh, that the old me, she was forgetting drives all the time. But the curiosity of the question why? Why am I feeling this way? Why is this coming up? Because I think one of the beautiful things that we get to experience on Earth in these human bodies is we get to feel emotions. And gosh, for so much of my life, I shut those emotions off. I didn't want to feel them. I didn't know how to, I didn't have capacity to feel them. And they are such a gift. I see that now. And what I have brought into my practices now and what I share with clients when we're working through some of the feelings and emotions that come online is taking a moment. Okay, what am I feeling first? Naming the emotion. Where am I feeling it in my body? Maybe there's a specific place in the body it's landing. And then that why can take a lot of forms. I hate to give any kind of a framework because it might be different in the moment, but just getting curious, like, oh, why am I feeling this? Or maybe where's this coming from? That can start to build on some of those early awareness tools that we talked about today. And really help just build a little bit of body awareness, getting that curiosity going and moving. I
Beautiful.
feel like that's a really tangible tip that we can all play with, see what feels right for us in that experience. But that curiosity, it goes a long way.
Yes, amazing. Thank you for that practical tip. And we're going to do a closing reflection if you want to give us a quote or anything like that. And I'm just going to let everyone know if you want to connect with Stephanie, we have her website, her Instagram, her Facebook link in the description box. And there's a free resource. There's a 3-minute breath and sound meditation, and it's available on her website. So if you want to expand on any of your offerings, you feel free, and then a closing reflection, a quote, something powerful to end on.
I love that we talked about breath so much today because it, as I reflect, that and sound frequency, sound healing, um, I'm also a singer. The vibration and breath have been such a beautiful part of my journey, and I know I'm not alone in that. Such a beautiful gift of us to get to have those as humans. So I kind of forgot about we were going to talk about the freebie, but I'm glad we did because that's a very actionable 3 minutes. You can come back into your body. I I offer a lot of different um, ways that we could collaborate and work together. Everything's on my website from one-on-one work to corporate wellness or, coming in for a team or a group experience to energy and intuitive. I know we didn't really even talk about that today, but there's a lot of different ways to work together. You can find that all on my website. And I would love if there are any things that landed from the conversation today. I would love to hear about it. I think that that's the coolest thing when we get to share our stories and share what resonated or what landed. So if anything from our conversation did land, regardless, I mean, I'm very active on Instagram. So I would give an invitation to reach out and just share a reflection if that feels alive for you.
Beautiful. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Stephanie, for your time, your energy, your wisdom. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and thank you for your time and energy. I value everyone who listens in. Thank you. Thank you. Namaste, everyone. Have a great day.